here. All right. Perfect. Awesome, everybody. Welcome in, welcome in. Hope everybody's having a swell Friday so far. We are live here. My name's Brett, and we are coming at you live, helping all of us here actually get some businesses going here. So excited to dive in with all of you. Just going to open up my slides and we'll dive on in. Awesome. Share my screen as it goes. Awesome. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Brett, and I'm, of course, a coach around here at Self Publishing School. And we're going to spend the next about 45 to 55 minutes or so here together talking about really the three mistakes, the most common mistakes that I see all the time entrepreneurs make that really keep them from getting a book out of their system. It's a hard thing to do, and I'm here to make sure that I can get you moving in the very best way possible, one step at a time, of course, along the way. These three mistakes are definitely the most common, and I want to make sure you don't make them when you're on your journey getting a book actually published. So first things first, of course, I'd love to know where everyone's at here, where you're tuning in from, what type of book you're working on. I'd love to hear that here in the comments, so please leave a chat there. Would love to hear from you. But if you don't know me, again, my name is Brett. I am a coach here at Self Publishing School. I started in on the sales and marketing team way back in the day, and now I've actually been working with our authors the last year and a half, 2 years here in the trenches, getting books completed. I am actually a serial entrepreneur myself. I've run a couple of companies, 6 and 7 figures, and grown some teams anywhere from about 5 or 6 employees up to about 120. And so I definitely know the battle, the plate spinning and putting out the fires and all of the things that have to happen in parallel to running a business and of course, getting just, a book out of your system. So, know the battle. And of course, naturally, I have written a couple books, and I know that feeling as well, to finally have an idea, just don't know how to execute on it, and finally seeing it come to fruition as well. So know that you're in your good hands here, and happy to make sure you're focused on the right stuff. And of course, today, I really want to spend some time really focusing on this concept, because after all of the work I've done on the book side of things and all of the work I've done on the business side of things, this is something that I think rings true for me in my heart of hearts. A book really is the best way to grow a business. And I think it also is the fastest way, which might be an interesting opinion to some. But I know that at the end of the day, that if you focus on doing this book the right way and avoid some of these mistakes that we're going to be talking about today, this is definitely going to be the path of least resistance to getting your business growing in the way that you want it to and the way that you envision. And so really, it comes down to 3 things because of this. I think that a book grows a business quickly because it's just instant credibility in a lot of ways that a lot of modern marketing isn't, and a lot of modern products aren't. And so there still is this authority in authoring, and that word is by design, right? There's a ton of credibility inside of books that are going to be a huge way for you to ultimately grow your business by using authoring as a tool, and giving more value, and also at the same time having that credibility that comes along with your name and your brand. Ultimately as well, it is kind of a little mini me of you. You're able to really create one place, a one-stop shop of all of the broken record conversations you have as an entrepreneur, and put them in one spot and just give that out as a way to just have 1,000 conversations at the same time. And so you'll be able to do this once, and have that replicable conversation with a lot of new prospects, employees, and beyond. And then lastly, of course, this is a fantastic place to take all of the things you've learned and distill it down into one spot. I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs that I work with at Self-Publishing School that have this, this yearning to just have a legacy in a place that is in a one spot. Just how do you tell your story when you're not there as an exercise? And so ultimately, a book is a fantastic way to do a lot of very pragmatic things and helpful things with the business. But I think as a person, as a founder, that's gone through a lot, this is a fantastic way to put your wisdom in one spot, and again, have it be there and giving you some peace of mind doing that. And so ultimately, going forward today, again, we're going to cover 3 of the main things that I see every single day and every single week working with authors in the trenches at Self-Publishing School, that really are things that if you can avoid, you're going to be ahead of the vast majority of people getting their books done. And so we're going to cover 3 main parts here. So the first piece is really a very rough draft centric, and some of the things that hang people up there. The second is going to be a lot around the audience and the monetization of the book and that part, and where some slip ups happen there. And then the third is all going to be around the marketing and the launch and some of the things that really need to get addressed before the book can get done, and of course, accomplish your version of success when it's released. And so we're going to be ready to dive in here. And so before we do that, we're going to get that all moving up here. Awesome. Cool. Welcome in, everybody. This is great. So now, first mistake that I see people make all of the time here, and it's something that is maybe counterintuitive at start, but I really want to help unpack this. Ultimately, the first mistake that entrepreneurs make that keep them from being published is they try and get out of the gates too quickly when it comes to the actual book itself. And so they hit the ground running, and they just want to be a speed demon right out of the gates. And I know some of you are probably thinking, geez, Brett, that doesn't sound right. I mean, I want to do this quick. If I can really focus on, I know my topic, I know my thing, I just want to follow this process and get it out now. And yes, all of that is true, but there comes with a big but. At the end of the day, if you don't flesh out the entire book, all the speed is going to pull on is moments of clarity. And so often what happens when I'm working with authors is they will go from this idea state immediately to writing. And unfortunately, there's this gap in the middle where we have to get very crystallized on the themes and the chapters and the audience and the problem that we're solving for said audience. And ultimately, that creates a lack of clarity if you don't do that middle part. Ultimately, when we've got these moments of clarity, we think, oh yeah, that's going to be great in the book. And so it's kind of this false positive effect where, okay, that sounds great. And then they go to writing. The problem is it just creates these moments without creating a foundation of clarity for the entire project and how it all works together as a unit. And so again, sounds counterintuitive at the beginning, but if you really look at the process, a book is a very deep amount of thinking and a lot of depth and nuance. And if you are just relying on these sparks and these moments of clarity and try and write on top of those, it's going to be fleeting, and you're not going to be able to get the progress done that you want to create. Because of course, as go-getters, as people that are just like have visions and that want to achieve a lot of amazing things, this is kind of how it all shakes out, right? Like we have these sparks, we try and write on these sparks, and ultimately we get a little bit of progress, but we hit a bit of a dead-end street. There's no kind of feels a little rudderless, or you're not really sure where to take the writing up to a certain point. And so that lack of clarity then just turns very quickly into a lack of confidence. I don't know if I was meant to be an author. Maybe this idea isn't that good. And that lack of confidence then quickly evolves into a lack of execution. Because of course, as go-getters, we just want to execute on things we know how to do and move forward. And so this lack of clarity very quickly turns into lack of confidence. Lack of confidence turns into the lack of execution. And of course, once there's a lack of execution, then we just write it off as a waste of time. There's other fires to put out in our world other than just writing a book and kind of bumping our head up against that wall. We can just go and do other things that feel more productive, right? And so that's ultimately the spiral effect of this lack of clarity if you try and write too quickly on the book idea that you have. And so ultimately, awesome. Okay, now we don't want to do that. So how do we go about it? How do we actually navigate the solution here? And so here's some tips. It sounds counterintuitive, but slow your roll, right? Like at the end of the day, we need to slow down initially in order to create a path of least resistance and speed up through the rest of the process. And so ultimately, what's in front of you initially, when you've got sparks and awesome ideas for a book, what we want to do is take those sparks and actually nurture them. And what does that mean? It's kind of getting out all of this potential around the idea. And so if you've got an idea to write a business book on finance, like instead of just these micro moments of, oh, that would be great content, now we just got to sit down and fully unpack what that means. Let's do the brainstorming and the mind mapping and the ideation to actually get it all out of our system rather than just kind of thinking about it and letting our brain do all the work. Let's get it out and give all of, give a chance to get all of the puzzle pieces on the table before we start rearranging and coming up with some different themes. So that's the work initially, is taking these sparks and then actually doing the thinking time, creating some time to brainstorm and to put that idea at the center of the page and then just start getting out all of the things that are related to it. It's the stories, it's the people, it's the clients, it's the catastrophic failures from your past, it's the things that have worked really, really well. It's, of course, all of the things that you've read in other books and all of these amazing mentors you've probably had. All of those things go around these sparks, and getting it all out will then create some themes and some aha moments of their own that you can use to start grouping together into a structure. And that's ultimately the goal here, is what we're doing in this process is going kind of right-brained as a function to then maximize our left brain. And so we're creating all this raw material. And then from there, once the dust settles, we can then create and pull from that the very best, most potent ideas to create the most impactful book possible the first time around. And so it's kind of like, instead of starting a road trip with only a quarter tank of gas, let's actually slow our roll enough, go to the gas station, let's fill up the tank so that we can get further faster, so we don't have to make pit stops and all these kinds of things. And so ultimately, that's the work. Now, ultimately, there's a lot of different ways to go about this. Some people do this in an analog kind of way, where there's going to be pens and pads and sticky notes and conference flip chart paper and whiteboards and all of these things. And that's fantastic. You can definitely do that. There's a lot of people, that's kind of my preference, frankly. My hand seems to move better than typing. And so lots of opportunity to kind of brainstorm and get tons out of your system this way. But ultimately, you can do it on a digital side of things. There's a lot of great infinite canvas type of apps on tablets and iPads. The one that I use consistently is called Concepts. It's fantastic. It's a great way to not be limited by space and kind of have that inner filter come in and judge. This whole process is very no filter. We have to get out everything as a way to make sure that it's there. And when we end up going and doing the writing, we have some peace of mind knowing we did all of this work already. And so ultimately, whether it's a digital app, again, I'd recommend Infinite Canvas if possible, just so you're not limited by space, or it's something like a massive whiteboard like behind me, or flip chart paper, or something of that function. Doesn't really matter. Just give yourself a large amount of real estate and not be limited by space to get out all of these ideas and maximize these sparks you have with everything that surrounds them. And so ultimately, what that looks like, it's probably not going to be 15 minutes. It's probably going to be that, 2, 3, 5, 8 hours cumulatively of spending some time doing the thinking on what could this book be. Ultimately, if you have built a business for any length of time, we just don't think about all of the things that we've come to know every day, right? We don't think about the totality of all of our experience every single day. Some of it, frankly, is probably just second nature at this point. And so we have to just give ourselves the bandwidth of opportunity to just get under the surface a little bit and start thinking about all of the things that we've grown into and things we take for granted, and all of those stories and all of those clients and all of those aha moments that we had that could be incredible for the book to change people's lives and create massive impact, but we just don't think about every day. And so this is going to be some time, and because of that, give yourself some time-based goals. I'm definitely a time calendar block kind of guy. And so for me, what that looks like is there is time every week in my calendar dedicated to writing and dedicated to thinking, actually, which sounds funny. But ultimately, that's what a lot of this initial work is just drumming up a lot of that internal learning and internal aha and past experience that has created the wisdom and the experience and the execution that you now experience every single day. So these time-based goals, whether it's 20-minute sprints or whether it's 2-hour-long periods of time to just get it out of your system, there isn't a right or wrong answer, but you have to kind of treat the book like your newborn baby. Of course, if you've got a lot of irons in the fire and you've got a lot of plates spinning, generally speaking, this book is not going to be one of those fires. It's not going to be one of those, active plates right out of the gates here. And so because of that, you have to be so intentional to give the book time right now, because it requires it, or else it's going to die on the vine. It's just not going to get past a seedling in that way. And so right now is just going to be intentional about blocking off the calendar in order to make progress in a very intentional way with thinking about the very best content for the book. And of course, there's never a perfect moment to do this. I mean, there's always things that are pulling on our time. And so it's not an exercise in trying to find this like perfect, calm between storms in our day-to-day and our week-to-week. That is a losing battle. It's just more of finding, some intentionality to make sure that, some things can work around intentional book thinking time. I always think back to that, the classic Stephen Covey 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. All of our day-to-day and all of our urgent, fires to put out, all of that exists in Q1, in quadrant 1, right? The things that are always pulling at our time that are important, of course, but they seem to always be there. This book is not one of them. This book exists in quadrant 2. It is the creative, important, just formational type of project that can completely change the game for your business and leave a legacy and ultimately grow revenue and all these kinds of things. It's just never going to scream for your time. And so what we have to do is scream for it on its behalf, and we have to give it time first in and among the fires in Q1. And so it's just kind of balancing act and this ebb and flow of just giving intention to the book and this initial work. And I can tell you that ultimately, if you do a good job of slowing your roll, doing the thinking, and really being intentional to unpack all of your expertise and all of these sparks and ideas, you're going to have so much content that you can work from that at that point, there's going to be a structure that you can cherry pick. There's going to be some things that work together you didn't think work together. And you're going to be able to then ultimately have a very good list of chapters and details within those chapters that at that point, ultimately the draft just becomes blossoming in the details around those details of the outline. And so the draft actually does become a lot easier. And for a lot of people doing this work, they say it's actually the easier part, which sounds, again, kind of counterintuitive. But again, it's just like you have to do that preparation work in order to then facilitate the path of least resistance type of rough draft that you're thinking about when you're thinking about writing a book right from the beginning. And so that's the first, major thing that a lot of people will just kind of get hung up on. They'll just move too quickly and then miss all of this incredibly powerful stuff that is just under the surface, and ultimately then hit some writer's block and throw in the towel when there was an amazing book in their system. They just didn't know what they didn't know. And so this is the first thing that you really got to pay attention to when we're moving through this whole process within the draft here. Second thing, and this again is a little bit more, I would say, audience focused and focused on the monetization of the book and really the bigger picture of the marketing as well. But I hear this all of the time when I start working with authors at self-publishing school. Brett, I don't have an audience. Like, I don't know if this makes sense to do right now. And I get that. Because as a knee-jerk reaction, it totally makes sense. It's a product, and if there's nobody to sell it to, then what is the point of writing the book if there's no one there hanging out at the other side waiting for it? The thing is the world's changed, right? So we live in a world now where books aren't just for reading anymore. Just like social media, as an example, social media used to be all about just being social, posting cute pictures, little updates, all of these things. That's what social media used to be. It has completely evolved at this point into something that is a massive business and a massive opportunity for entire new industries to be created. Influencers weren't a thing before social media, and because there has been a business lens now put on social media, it's completely evolved away from cute pictures. And books are the same way. Books aren't just for reading anymore. They have now become the foundation that you can build upon for a book, or a business rather. And so you can use the book for all these things, like I was saying before, around cloning yourself and creating some opportunity to leave a legacy, and at the same time also create some credibility. But because of that, you don't need an audience at the end of the day. You can use Amazon, which of course, Google is a search engine of browsers. Amazon is actually a search engine of buyers. They have our credit card on file. And so you can use that as a tool, as a distribution network to immediately, day one, reach people. And so this idea of you don't need to build an audience, or I don't have an audience, is a moot point these days, just because of how the industry has shifted and evolved, just like social media. And so right now, this is the focus. Instead of thinking, okay, the book is the start line, or rather the finish line, it's actually at the very, very beginning. There's so many incredible companies that have been built off of a book. And so when we're thinking about what to get started first, I get a lot of questions working with authors. It's, should I, do the course first? I think I'm starting a membership. I want to get my coaching business up and running first before I start the book. And again, as a knee-jerk reaction, that makes a lot of sense. But if you really dig a layer deeper into that, you can use the book as the best business card ever in order to facilitate all of those people coming into your world, probably charging a higher price, probably having higher level conversations faster. And so if you dedicate some time to actually do this project one time, you're going to be able to have the book for the next years, decades even, in order to then add fuel to any fire you decide you want to build upon. And so it's a really great, fantastic foundation, not just the window dressing at the end of all of this building that you're thinking about doing. So again, what does that really look like? Focus on creating incredible content in this way first. And this kind of ties back to this previous point I was mentioning before. If you write a book that is based off of all the things you've come to know, and it's based on solving a genuine problem that people in your world have, whether it's your clients, whether it is your past self, and kind of writing the book to, I wish I would have known A, B, C, D. That's fantastic. People these days, when they come to books and come to the book market, they're definitely looking to fill a gap. They're looking to solve a problem. And we always say around here, people buy pain pills, not vitamins in nonfiction. And so at the end of the day, we are working towards really solving a genuine gap and creating massive value, because we've been able to help people transition from a painful A to a painless B through our expertise in the form of a book. And naturally, what that also means is you don't want the book to be a dead end street. There is a lot of books out there that are just amazing. But if you really look at what they are, it's just content for content's sake. There's no next step. And so the best thing I can recommend for everybody here is making sure that you can have some free resources within the book somewhere, whether it's at the end or the beginning, or somewhere in the middle. I'd probably recommend all of the above, frankly. One at the beginning, one at the end, some stuff in the middle where it makes sense to talk about. Then people know as they're working through the content that they're not alone on an island here as they're working through your content and getting value, that if they wanted to take a next step and go deeper with you, which some of your biggest raving fans of readers will want to do, they know how to do it, whether it is going to your website, whether it is checking out another book, whether it is setting up a discovery call for a coaching program. As long as they know that they can go deeper with you, you're going to be able to take this Amazon search engine of buyers and then pull them into your world, and then start to curate an audience based off of the book alone. And so it's not, again, an example of having to have an audience before the book is released. You can utilize the current marketing systems like Amazon that are in place, create incredible content, and create real value for people. And then as long as it's not a dead end street and you're creating some great next steps for people to go deeper, they will do that. And then that's how you can build a list. That's how you can build a tribe. And from there, you can scale the coaching business, or you can scale the course or the membership or whatever the next thing is. And so ultimately, lots of opportunities there with some free resources. Naturally as well, you can work smart these days with some of these call to action, CTAs. There's a lot of people using review sweepers, and there's a lot of people now using QR codes within the books themselves. And I actually have a couple examples of some recent authors that I've been working with that have done that. On the left-hand side is Jill Stevens. She has a great memoir self-help book that she's using as a way to give massive value, while also at the same time create next steps for her people at the same time to build her list and build her tribe. And of course, there's a great QR code. It's well designed, and it's right at the front of the book. I mentioned a minute ago that, if you want to have, at the front of the book, the back of the book, a bunch in the middle, if you're going to choose one, when only one, I would put it at the front. Because of course, these days, tragically, unfortunately, most people don't finish books. It's about 80%. And so if you put all of these amazing resources at the back, only a handful of people out of all of your readers are going to see it. And so it's great if you're going to have to choose one. I would do it all if you can, but if you have to choose one, put it at the front, just so that you can maximize all of the eyeballs that are going to be seeing your content. And so Jill did a really great job of teeing up her new resources on her website. On the right-hand side is Bonnie. Bonnie has a book on basically weight loss and healthy living through her cookbook. This is in her cookbook on metabolic flexibility, and it's incredible. And so she actually is now, she's doing a launch here coming up in the next 6 weeks or so, where she's actually going to be doing a $5,000 retreat for people to learn how to take action on cooking these recipes in her book, how to do things more healthily, and just generally live a more holistic lifestyle. And so she's done a really good job of creating this path of least resistance for people from this is like the second page of her book. I pulled both of these directly off of Amazon on the look inside feature. And so there's sometimes, because of that, people don't even need to buy the book. They can actually go and get the resources without buying the book. And that's a huge win, again, from using Amazon as a search engine of buyers and then getting them into your world. And so lots of opportunities here to work smarter and create some massive opportunity. You can also do things, without QR codes. This is an example here of our Chandler Bold, our founder. He did some audio books. He did some cool stuff with giving away, our summary of the book with a link. And so there's a lot of fun that you can have with this. But at the end of the day, working smarter, definitely having this in there so that it's not a dead end street is going to be a huge win, to not have to feel like you have to build this massive email list or huge Facebook or Instagram following or something in order to then sell a book. Again, this book is now at the start line, not the finish line of your branding infrastructure. And so if you think about it as a foundation and you work smart like this, you're really going to be able to get a lot of traction quickly by using these modern tools at your disposal. And of course, a book is just going to be a catalyst that way. So again, big mistake that people make is just like putting the book at the wrong end, and then at the same time not working smart when they do have the book out. That kind of just is like kind of pouring water into a leaky bucket. There's just so much lost potential. That's unfortunate, but it's a pretty common mistake. And so make sure to work smart, make sure to put the book at the beginning, and you can build a lot more effectively with the business. Third mistake here as we go through. So this mistake, I would say, is it's pretty common, and it's one of those things that I have to kind of disarm, especially when we're around the launching of the book and the initial marketing. So I often get initially, especially when we've created a massively great book through some of these other things we just talked about, by focusing on the draft the right way, sometimes I get this comment. It's just like, Brett, the content is king. Like, I just created this incredible book. It's going to sell itself. Or no one's written a book like this before. I haven't found anything like this on Amazon. I get these comments all of the time. And the problem with these types of comments is that right now, again, this industry has shifted so much that at this point, if you build it, people just don't come. I really wish it was the other way around, but it's the truth. And it's not necessarily a fault of anything other than the actual scale that this market is now in. I mean, there are millions of books on Amazon. And so the market is just too saturated. There's so much quantity that quality gets lost in the shuffle. And again, it's a tragedy because there's just some incredible content that's on Amazon right now that just dies on the vine because people didn't have an intentional effort towards punching through the clouds and actually making themselves known with this incredible content. And so don't think about leaning on the content only. Content it's needed. We absolutely need to write good books in order to solve a problem, in order to create an audience, in order to really start getting this momentum going. But don't lean on that. The book is not going to carry its own weight. Initially, again, it's kind of like a newborn that way, where we have to nurture it and we have to really spend some time making sure that it grows organically well with focus. And so the solution here is really being diligent on a pre-release and a post-release plan. And we're going to get into the mechanics here in a second, but just remember that like quality is ultimately needs to work through the quantity. I really wish this wasn't the case, but this part of the market, this timing of the market, it's kind of democratized the publishing industry. Amazon has been incredible that way. The double-edged sword now is that you are among millions of other new authors. And so in order to start separating yourself, it needs intentionality in order to just start to create a cut above the rest that way. So being intentional with a pre-release, what does that look like? Well, beforehand, we want to build a launch team. And, there's a lot of talk, if you're in self-publishing school or you looked at some of our content online, we talk about this idea of a launch team, and it's incredibly powerful. And we're going to get into exactly what that looks like here in a second. But ultimately, what it boils down to is you want to have a team, a group of people that have said yes to you, supporting you with the initial launch of the book. And so usually within that first week, 2 weeks is going to be all effort from the launch team, 50, 100, 200 people that are all over your network. These are people that are friends, family, colleagues, peers, clients, your dentist. All of these people, you can ask and say, hey, I'm launching a book. If you didn't know, would you be interested in supporting the book? And if they say yes, then what we've found at Self-Publishing School is like a strategy last about 12 to 18 months or so, is then having a follow-up question to the yes around tiers. And we're going to get here into tiers in a second. But ultimately, the launch team is going to be a massive, massive leverage point as a way to get yourself to be a cut above the rest. Most books out there right now just get click publish and that's it. Maybe a couple of reviews, maybe a couple of friends and family, but that's basically it. And so as a function to start to get this quality content that you're focused on and have been focusing on to then start to get noticed, launch teams are a fantastic function to do that, especially early within that first couple of weeks that the book is released. And so what that means is, of course, connecting with your entire network. What that also means functionally is that it's not just going to be a blast email, or it's not just going to be one Facebook post and that's it. My recommendation is actually taking it down to the ground floor and start connecting with people one-on-one again. And so that could mean texting people. That could mean direct messages on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram. That could mean individual emails. That could mean a phone call. What a concept. And so lots of opportunity to connect with one-on-one types of people, more because of the stats. Right now, some of the best world-class digital marketing, one-to-many blast email, some of the best in the world types of open rates and engagement is anywhere from about 30 to 40% open rates. Incredible. If you look at a text, it's over 90%. And so if you're going to be working smarter with your time, it's actually easier to get yeses and easier to get commitments via text and one-on-one direct messages these days than it is with a blast email. And again, that sounds counterintuitive because again, I get a lot of people asking me like, oh, Brett, it seems like a lot of work. And it is. I mean, it is definitely a lot of work during the launch week, but that's kind of the nice thing is like, you don't have to do this every week in order to have sales on a book every week. You literally just have to do this one time, and it's going to create a baseline of reviews and a baseline of traction that can stand the test of time. And so don't feel like, this is going to be every single week or every single month as a way to keep the book going. We just have to get the book off the ground and nurture it to the point where it can carry its own weight. And so what that looks like is a couple of things. We've found that in order to create a launch team, you can do a tiered structure. So after you get your entire network and you've talked to them one-on-one and they say yes, the follow-up question to that should always be, thank you so much. What tier would you like to fall into? And it's not an ask for a specific tier. It's kind of a choose your own adventure type of ask. And you're letting all of the people in your world that have said yes choose themselves. And so tier one is just buying a copy. They're willing to buy you a copy for you as part of your launch team. Tier two is buying a copy and then leaving a review on Amazon with, that first week or two. And then the third tier, are just like the go-getters. They're buying a copy, they are leaving a review, and they're actively sharing it to their own network. And whether that's on their own email list or whether that's on their social media or otherwise, they're leaning in, they're doing all the things. And so we need all of these tiers. So it doesn't matter necessarily what lane they pick. It just matters that they've picked something that is actually meaningful to them that they can do. Because what we found, and the whole premise around this, is that if you just rely on yeses, a lot of times there's a lot of variety within those yeses where, if you're asking all of those yeses to buy a copy, leave a review, actively share, there's going to be a lot of people that fall off the wagon because they just don't have the time, or they don't feel comfortable shouting from the rooftops on social media. And so it's an exercise in meeting people where they're at and having available options in order for them to pick and choose from that they know that they can commit to. If they're really busy right now and they know they can't leave a review, they're definitely going to be very comfortable probably with just buying a copy and still supporting you. And that's great. We need a lot of copies purchased. So this function here as a yes and then the tiers after really serve as a great way to keep the gears going and turning as we progress. And so yeses and then tiers working incredibly well. I was working with a gentleman, his name's Joe Reed, and he did this extremely well. He had over 300 people on his launch team, and he launched his book, and he had over 100 reviews within the first 30 days of the book existing on Amazon. And that immediately shot him to bestseller. And he still is always here and there a best-selling author on Amazon because he punched through the clouds with intention, and he was able to nurture the book and his people to the point where he doesn't have to necessarily think about the book every day now. The book just carries its own weight. It makes sales. And it's because he's got now 172 reviews. There's enough social proof on the book where he doesn't have to do any convincing. Now the book just sells itself. And so ultimately, building a launch team is a great way in order to build a lot of social credibility so that you don't have to do that heavy lifting every day in order to sell books. Someone else that did it really well was Adrian. Adrian, I was working with. He wrote a book on his specific niche in mobile home investing. And same thing, he did a really good job of going to his entire network and building a group of over 200 people. And from there, he launched his book and was #1 in multiple categories, actually, within that first 30 to 40 days. And he actively worked at following up with his people to make sure they had the right links, to make sure that they didn't forget about him, all of these things. And now he's got over 114 reviews on his book on Amazon. And he just launched this back in March. And so really cool opportunity to see people that are taking this intentionality and then asking for tiers just to help kind of meet people where they're at. Then, Adrian didn't have to follow up as much with people because people just did the thing that they were comfortable with already. And so it's just a great way to keep the gears going and not have to work as hard actually during your launch week because people have committed to a thing that they know they can do. And there isn't as much attrition and there isn't as much fall off because, you're not trying to pull teeth, trying to have people do thing that they're not really comfortable with. And so this is a really great opportunity. And these gentlemen did a really good job of doing that. So building a launch team I would say probably 3 to 4 weeks, starting to get these yeses before your launch timing is really going to be huge to help build this list of, I'd say like 100 or 200 people is a really good baseline in your world to have a best-selling launch. And so, of course, once the book is released, now the exercise is like, okay, Brett, now what do I do? And some of the next steps here is what I like to call, and a lot of my authors, kind of make fun of me for this, but it's kind of like pleasant persistence. It's just making sure that people know that your book is a priority. Of course, all of us are getting pulled in 1,000 different directions a day. We've got full calendars. We've got a lot of priorities. We've got kids. We've got extracurriculars. We've got a business to run sometimes. And so at the end of the day, there's just a lot going on. And so you and your network is probably going to be the same. And so expecting them to remember you and be there right with intention, especially with something like a book that's pretty well, the least urgent thing to ever leave a review on or something. It's going to be an exercise in just reminding people that how to leave a review, how to buy a copy, how to do the thing. And you're going to get a ton of people that forget and just do it anyway a couple of days later. But if you just don't follow up at all, you're going to have a lot of people that just assume you're fine and don't do the thing. And so it's important to have this pleasant persistence after the book is launched for the first, I'd say 2 to 3, definitely 2, but probably 2 to 4 weeks. Just making sure that people know how to do the thing and support you. And of course, you're going to get a lot of follow through that way. And again, you just have to do this one time, and then you'll have the book carry its own weight. The next thing to do is thinking about PR. Once you've got the book, It's going to be a lot easier then to go on podcasts and get booked on conferences and maybe get on local TV and radio and all of these awesome opportunities. So we can talk about that here in a second. But yeah, great opportunity once the book is live to then go out and start using the book again as a foundation of credibility to start snowballing and growing your audience and eventually growing your business through other offers as well. The last thing too is Amazon ads. And again, we're going to dive into that here in a second. I think somebody on the pleasant persistence front that did it really well is one of our students, and actually now one of our employees. He's part of the team now. His name's Nate. Nate did an incredible job of follow-up. He had an amazing opportunity with his book with Crush Your Kryptonite. He had a couple hundred people on his launch team. He did really well, but what he did just masterfully was making sure that people knew exactly what links to click, exactly where to go, making it really easy for his people, and doing that with a lot of intention for the first 3 to 4 weeks after the book was launched. And now he's got over 200 reviews on Amazon. He's doing this super well. He just launched this a couple months ago, and he is constantly getting reviews now. The book is carrying its own weight, and really it's something that he can build on top of now at this point. And so he did a really fantastic job of pleasant persistence with his people via text and via LinkedIn messages. So we're talking about PR now. PR opportunities are really, really great. For a lot of us entrepreneurs, I think that they are probably the bread and butter of creating some momentum. Best thing to do is research ahead and make sure you know who you want to reach out to before the launch, because there's just going to be so much going on. You want to time this with your bestseller, and just so that you have that credibility when they click on your book and actually look you up. And you want to really engage them with a compelling hook via email. I think ultimately there's a lot of emails that die on the vine because the subject matter is just not that good, or the subject line even wasn't even that good. It just gave away the farm, or it just didn't really pack any punch. And so when you're researching, I would do this again about a month ahead of time. And I would be looking for, again, local TV and radio and newspapers. There's a lot of credibility with those still. Maybe don't convert in the way that they used to, but there's still tons of credibility. I would definitely be looking for podcasts. I would definitely be looking for conferences, virtual stages, summits, webinars, and partnerships like that. There's really cool opportunity as authors now to use that credibility to get into new audiences with that credibility. And so definitely research this about a month ahead of time. And then that way, when you hit bestseller after the release of the book and the launch team's work, now you're going to be able to strike when the iron's hot and actually send a bunch of emails to a lot of these opportunities and get yeses, because there's some traction on your book. Now, as far as creating that engagement, I would definitely recommend creating some unique and exciting, maybe even a little controversial hooks that create some engagement. Now, what does that mean? It's usually creating some kind of hook around your book that it creates some curiosity. It's like, I don't fully know what that means. That sounds kind of intriguing, but I want to know more. And so as long as you can do that within the subject line of an email, and then you're going to be able to have these podcast hosts, as an example, open up the email. Of course, the next thing to do inside of the body of the email is make sure that it's not just the you show. Really, a lot of these organizations are wanting to serve their audiences really, really well. And so making it all about them and how you can serve the audience, how you can serve the host and set them up and tee them up to be shown in a good light. Everything you can do to highlight them and the audience in that way is always going to get way more yeses than somebody that's just, look at me, look at me, look at me. And so generally speaking, get them in the door, create something that's maybe a little controversial or unique, something they haven't seen before. And then once they're there, make sure the body of the email is short, it's to the point, and it's something that provides tons of value for them and is very forward and them focused rather than you focused going forward here. So a lot of opportunities there. And ultimately, once you do that, you're going to get a lot of traction from people saying yes, especially if you time it well. Lastly, after the launch is moving after a couple of weeks, this is something to start considering is Amazon ads. Now, this is an entire rabbit hole very, very quickly. Paid traffic is definitely one of those. But what I would recommend is, right around that second, third week of the launch, starting to kickstart an automated campaign, an automated targeting campaign of Amazon ads that is just going to be a great way to have Amazon test the market for you and create a lot of momentum just underneath all of this without you having to do too much. Of course, the great thing about Amazon ads in an automated way is that you don't have to work, yes, but also simultaneously that they actually get smarter over time because Amazon's doing a ton of testing for you. And like we said before, because the ocean of content is so big, as Amazon does testing and as it grows its database of sample size, it's actually going to refine your niche and refine your audience enough to the point where you're actually converting pretty consistently. Now, I will say keep perspective on this because sometimes that takes a couple months. Sometimes that takes like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months. But if you talk to a lot of full-time authors, they'll actually say that a lot of their automated campaigns are some of the most profitable just because Amazon's done enough testing and there's enough sample size. And so ultimately know that this is going to be a bit of a sport to play. But if you start with an automated targeting campaign, keep some perspective and just let it ride underneath a lot of this other work with your launch team and PR, you're going to be able to have an additional set of sales and exposure for your book to a new audience as you progress here. And so ultimately, there's a lot of things to do here, but if you just focus on some intentionality, you don't just lean on the content and, and just kind of rest on your laurels that, the book is new, it's super fresh, no one's seen this before. As long as you don't have that mentality and you actually approach the pre-launch team building with intention and you approach the PR and the advertising afterwards and the follow-up afterwards with intention, you're going to definitely be able to create a book that carries its own weight in the marketplace quickly and not have to worry about keeping it up like a balloon every day in order to actually just make sales and get exposure. So what did we learn today, right? What did we cover? We're doing pretty good on time here. Really, first we talked about that draft. Second, we talked about the audience and the monetization. Third, we covered some launch stuff just now. And what were the mistakes, right? I mean, don't rush too quickly into this content and just build a draft off of some cool little sparks and epiphanies. You really want to slow your roll and really be intentional with mind mapping and creating a ton of raw material around those sparks so that you can get the best content that's right under the surface of your expertise down and structured to then just speed race through a draft second. And so ultimately, don't rush the writing, spend some time, and that way your draft is going to be better. It's going to be a better book, and it's going to be a much, much more seamless process and enjoyable process to write a book rather than this attempt to kind of lay track ahead of a moving train all of the time. So focus on just this ideation first. Secondly, again, please don't try and build your entire brand before starting the book. Again, the book doesn't exist at the finish line of this brand building exercise now. The book absolutely can exist at the start, and you can use that credibility at the start line in order to make a ton of momentum quickly by separating yourself in your industry, having 1,000 conversations at the same time, giving away incredible free resources and building your tribe and just working smarter that way. I mean, this is a great way to have a one-to-many conversation that has a lot of authority still in it. And you can use that as a tool to build coaching programs and build coaching and courses and membership sites and all of these amazing other things you can build and start to scale up. Use the book as the foundation. Lastly, of course, please don't just think the book is going to do its own heavy lifting. Again, if you build it, people will not come. So make sure that about 3-4 weeks before you're about to release the book, start building a launch team, getting some tiers in place. And then once the book is live, now you're following up, you're getting reviews, creating that social credibility and moving things forward that way. Then you can start layering on PR opportunities, reaching out to podcasts, start to build some Amazon ads into the mix. And that's all just going to spiral things up as you progress. But if you don't do any of that, the book's just going to die on the vine. I can tell you that. And so ultimately, these 3 things, if you just if you don't do anything else as far as like the how goes, if you avoid these three things, you're going to be ahead of like 90% of other authors that are doing this for the first time. And so excited to see a lot of you start to build some incredible stuff moving forward here. Of course, if you want to go more deep on this, we've got a lot of great opportunities. Actually, there's been a lot of people in our world that has been asking. So ultimately, if you found that this is helpful and you just want to dive deep and you're kind of committed to spending some time doing the deep dive on thinking through the book, writing a good book, and thinking about the marketing in the back end a lot more intentionally here, I'd invite you to this. This is our live event that we do every single year. This is Author Advantage Live. It's happening from August the 11th to the 13th. And it's going to be an incredible event. We do this every year, and we've had some incredible speakers in the past. We had John Maxwell last year do some incredible training with us. So it was incredible to hear him and how he's written, close to 90 books. And so an incredible opportunity to learn from us directly. And of course, build your brand, build your book, build the infrastructure that you can use to scale things up in a lot more of a work smart way. Now, the nice thing is, and this is actually, the sneak peek from last year, we're actually doing this virtually. And so you can come from anywhere in the world. You can sit in your living room. You can get tons of content directly from us. It's going to be an amazing event that way. This is Aaron and Sean doing some training with the gang there. Really good opportunity. Here's Chandler. He's talking to John Maxwell, and a great interview, just full of nuggets and wisdom. And so that was an incredible opportunity to get some real world insight from him and his mind, just decades into this whole authoring thing. And so lots of opportunity there to, come from big speakers and learning from us as well from the team. This is Rachel and Sean giving away some book awards from all of our, from our community, which is a lot of fun. Of course, we also have people like our content manager, Bella. She's actually going to be diving into the book sales network a lot deeper and talking about how you can pull, lead magnets and podcast interviews and book ads and all of these things together and build this infrastructure, this system, this engine that can help, again, carry the book's own weight far beyond what you can do as a single person, as a single author. And so, oftentimes what we do at this event is roll out brand new content from what we're seeing in the marketplace that year. And it's a fantastic way to get the newest information on what's happening in the publishing industry and the strategies to avoid and to do in order to maximize the bleeding edge of how this market is changing. Of course, if you want to come, it's going to be, again, a pretty action-packed 3-day event. Day one, this is day one here. It's all going to be about creating some incredible content. Again, the book has to solve a problem. The book has to do a really good, genuine job of providing massive value in the marketplace. And that doesn't just happen. So we're going to get down into the weeds, going to spend a whole day. And again, if you're serious, like this is, we're talking like kind of 9 to 5, 8 to 6, like this is going to be a full day of going into the weeds of how to actually build an incredible book that will stand the test of time. That's going to be day one. Day two is all going to be about that monetization. It's like, how do we actually now take the book and build on top of it in a work smart way and, not have to reinvent the wheel doing that. Again, stuff that we've seen people build and stuff that we're currently building as well with our students. And then the last day is all going to be about marketing. It's, the one thing that a lot of people have gaps on. I know I did back in the day. This is something that a lot of people need help with. And we're going to be spending an entire day on marketing and going down into the rabbit hole of all of the tactics and all of the things you need to do in order to maximize that time. And so it's going to be an incredible event. If you're interested in coming here, it's actually only $77 right now for a 3-day general admission ticket. This is the lowest price it's going to be. It was actually, we've kind of been bumping it up a little bit. It was a little bit lower about a couple weeks ago, but this is the lowest price it'll be. And it's just going to be going up here towards the event in August. But the price is going up on July the 18th. So if it works for your calendar and you are serious about kind of taking the deep dive here with doing the book the right way, building it up the right way, and monetizing it the right way, I mean, shoot, $77. I've spent way more money on sillier things than 3 days of incredible book training. We've got some incredible speakers lined up. Keep the pulse on what we're doing here. If you're interested in getting that announcement, that should be happening any day now. Frankly, I don't know how we got some of these speakers. Just it's going to be amazing. So it's again $77 for a 3-day general admission pass. If you're looking to do the deep dive with us and the team, you can upgrade to a virtual VIP experience. And that's going to be actually some hot seat coaching. There's going to be a great opportunity to get direct coaching from the speakers. There's going to be an opportunity to actually have lifetime recordings for all of the events. So if you want to watch the trainings again and again and again, that's going to be a fantastic way to do that. And just some, general perks. There's going to be some great, meet and greets with other entrepreneurs and some of our alumni. And so really cool opportunity there to really go down the rabbit hole, have that training forever, and get some incredible hot seat coaching with me and the team and our speakers. And so with that said, if you are interested in doing the deep dive with us, you can click on the link. There's the link in the chat there. Feel free to come to Author Advantage Live. We'd love to see you there. It's going to be an incredible 3-day event. And again, if you really want to look at doing this the right way the first time and not getting hung up with a lot of people do with their first book, and actually start to up level the business and take things forward the right way here into the rest of the year, now's the time. I mean, this is a great opportunity. Feel free to check out more details, of course, on authoradvantagelive.com. We've got tons of layouts of what the details are going to be there, and you can sign up there as well. But feel free to click the link in the description. Again, this is going to be the cheapest it's going to be. So, things are going up here on the 18th. So feel free to grab your ticket at the link in the chat there. And we're going to be able to take things up a notch with you guys with your books and with your businesses. And so with that said, I'm going to leave it at that for today. Thank you all so much for coming. Hopefully this was valuable and engaging, and you got some nuggets here. And again, if your time makes sense for you and you want to hang out virtually with us and do the deep dive for the 3-day event at Author Advantage Live, you can go to authoradvantagelive.com. You can check out the link in the description. Again, $77 for a ticket, 3-day event. It's going to be incredible. We're going to have some amazing content with some amazing training that's pretty cutting edge. And so with that, I'll leave you to it, and excited to see you there at Author Advantage Live. So hope everyone has a great rest of the Friday. Have a great week.